Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing my official MotoGP 2025 Championship predictions. I'm filming this on the 20th of February, which means the season starts in 8 days time. All the testing for MotoGP has finished. We know how each rider is looking, what injuries people have got. We've got everything we need to know. So now is the perfect time to do my championship predictions for the upcoming season. So I'm going to give my final championship table predictions from 22nd up to 1st, and if any riders I think will have any shock results, I'll also mention them with the rider. And also at the end I'll give my predictions for the Constructors and the Teams Championship, but they should be pretty self-explanatory with the Riders Championship predictions. So let's just get straight into it. Now I'll be completely honest, testing for this season has completely skewed my predictions. Before testing, I had a pretty good idea of what I thought was going to happen in this upcoming season, and testing has completely muddled that. However, one thing which it hasn't changed is my prediction for 22nd place, who is Somkhat Chandra. I don't think there is a single person on the planet who will not have Somkhat Chandra in last position for these championship predictions. He is quite clearly the least prepared and the least talented of the rookies being promoted this year. He's also going to be on the worst bike, certainly for the start of the year. In testing, he has been by far the slowest of the rookies and been the slowest on most of the testing days, to be honest. And yeah, I think it'll be a genuine miracle if he doesn't finish last. That being said, I don't think he'll have a terrible season for his standards. Nobody is expecting anything of Somkhat Chandra this season. Nobody's expecting him to do well. So if he's able to just get closer to the rest of the pack as the season goes on, he'll have a good season. And I'm also going to submit my first shock result. I've mentioned this previously, I think Somkhat Chandra is due for a top 5 finish at some point this season. This includes sprint races, by the way. We've seen Chandra is very good in the wet and at Asian tracks, and if you combine the two, he becomes into some sort of god at motorcycle racing. And I think that will happen at one point over the year. He'll get that luck where he's at an Asian track and it rains and he'll shock everyone and get a top 5 finish. However, that won't be enough to drag him off last place position though. 22nd Somkhat Chandra, I'll be astonished if this doesn't come true. Another very easy one for me coming up next, we've got 21st Luca Marini. Luca Marini, the first half of last year was embarrassing to be honest for him. He didn't score many points, he took him until Sachsenring to score his first points. And I'll be honest, I'm expecting more of the same really. I can't see him outscoring Joan Mir or Zarco really. I don't expect Honda to produce a good bike for him to challenge for points consistently. I think he will just be left behind a bit. And I'm also not convinced that Luca Marini is good enough to push that bike to its limit. I don't see any shock results from him. He'll just have a very average season, being in around the bottom form for most of the year really. So yeah, I think he'll be fairly clear of Somkhat Chandra, but I also don't think he'll be anywhere close to 20th. It will just be a very lonely 21st place for Luca Marini. 20th place now. This one might be a bit controversial. I've got Jack Miller. I think no matter how good Yamaha are in this season, no matter how much progress they make across the season, Jack Miller is not going to be the one delivering the points for them. He was atrocious last year. I'm really still amazed that he's got a seat for this year. And I see him completely underwhelming everyone again. I think this will be his last year in MotoGP. He has not convinced me at all that he's got it in him to get good results. His only good results last year, he was still beaten by both Acosta and Binder, which shows that even when he's on a good weekend, it's mostly just because the bike's good. I do think the Yamaha bike will improve across the year, which will probably drag him clear of the bottom two, and he's got it in him to get 1 or 2 decent results, but I really don't see him being anywhere close to his Yamaha teammates. I see him crashing more than his Yamaha teammates as well. And yeah, just an underwhelming season from Jack Miller once again. 20th place in my opinion. 19th place, I've gone with Joan Zarco. I think a bit of a downgrade from Zarco this upcoming year. He was of course the lead Honda last year and was by far the most impressive of the Hondas last year. I think he will take a bit of a backward step. He's getting on a bit now. He is turning 35 this year. He can't stay at the high performance levels for too much longer. I still think he'll be very much clear of Marini and Chandra, and overall, considering his age, he'll have a good season. However, I don't see him finishing above Joan Mir. I don't see him getting the standout results he got last year. He'll just be consistently the second best Honda, really. I see him maybe getting a similar points tally to last year, as I think Honda will be better than last year. However, I just see him being outperformed by some of the people around him who he was able to beat last year. One of which being my 18th place position is Joan Mir. I'm expecting a big turnaround for Joan Mir this year. Last year he finished behind both LCR Hondas. He had another year which was a disaster really. He kept crashing, got more injuries. I'm expecting a turnaround from Joan Mir this year. I think he'll be the fastest and the best Honda. I think hopefully that Honda won't throw him off the bike as much, and he'll be able to finish a few more races. Because when he wasn't crashing, he was still one of the fastest Hondas. It was between him and Zarco who was the fastest last year. I think this year Mir will establish himself as the fastest Honda rider. He'll crash a lot less, and I think with that he'll be above Johann Zarco in the championship. I think he will be helped by Honda's slow rise in performances. I can't imagine they'll be brilliant, but I think by the end of the year he'll be able to consistently fight for around top 10 finishes by the end of the year. So yeah, I'm predicting a positive season for Joan Mir. However, for a former world champion, 18th place in the championship should not be considered a positive season, and I think he will still be held back by Honda not being all that great, especially in the first half of the year. Moving on to 17th now, I have got Alex Rins. This might not be a popular one because I think people do still rate Alex Rins quite highly. However, last season for him was a disaster. He finished on the same points as Nakagami. He suffered with constant injuries, but even when he wasn't injured, he showed a complete lack of pace. He has some good qualifying, but would completely shit the bed at the start, and then would finish in about 13th in every race. Problem with Rins is that I have seen very little to convince me that he is able to turn around his form. Even with Yamaha improving last year, he only got 2 top 10 finishes all year, not a single point scored in sprint races either. I'm not convinced that he's able to reach the heights he was at when he was on the Suzuki. I think the best of him has been beaten out of him when he broke his leg in Mugello a couple years ago. I think the best of Alex Rins is gone, which is really sad to see because on his day he was a fantastic rider. And I think he will have an improvement on last year, but I still don't see anything special from him, and overall it'll be an underwhelming season from him. 17th place. And I think he'll be behind Miguel Oliveira, who I've got in 16th spot. Despite Oliveira being on the satellite team, Oliveira and Rins are in similar stages of their career, I think, when they're clearly past their best. They've both had a lot of injury problems. They've had the best of them beaten out by injuries, and they're sort of trying to recover their careers a bit, but in reality, they are both at the twilight end of their career, I think. However, I've got Oliveira finishing above Alex Rins, for one reason really. His wet weather performances are much better than Alex Rins, and I'm going to submit my second bold prediction. I think Oliveira will win a wet race at some point this year. He might not be as good as he was 3 or 4 years ago, but I still think Oliveira has it in him to pull off a wet weather masterclass. And if it's at a track he likes, there's potential for him to do something. Once again, I'm including sprint races in this. But yeah, Oliveira, I think he will win a race or a sprint race in the wet this year, which will put him above Alex Rins in the points tally. So I've got him finishing in 16th place. After this is where it started getting really difficult for me. I'm fairly confident that those bottom 7 will be around the bottom 7. I'm not convinced that Yamaha or Honda will be good enough for the entire season to not be the bottom 2 manufacturers. However, after this, I think there'll be a gap between 15th and 16th, and this is where it got difficult for me. In 15th, I've gone with Maverick Vinales. Everyone knows the mess at KTM, and across testing, KTM were far from convincing, really. I do think they potentially have the best rider lineup of anyone going into this year, which I think will carry them through any particularly difficult phases they have. I think their bike development across the year will be underwhelming. And Maverick Vinales, he is the least convincing of all their riders in my opinion. Vinales, he started last season on fire, but towards the end he was very underwhelming, and I think that form's going to continue into the new year. I see him maybe getting 1 or 2 good results, but I don't see him having any sort of consistency. I think he'll be by far the slowest of the KTMs. And for once, Vinales showed no pace at all in testing, which is a big concern, because usually Vinales is the testing world champion. This time he was near the bottom of the table. I think Vinales is going to struggle by far the most of anyone on the KTMs, and I think he'll be in 15th spot. In 14th spot, I've got Aya Gura. I think Agura will have a good solid season. He'll have a consistent season, which is what he needs at this point. I don't see him at all getting any standout results really. He showed last year in Moto2 that he relies a lot on consistency, and I think he'll get that. Ogura seems to have shown some good pace in testing. He seems to have adapted to MotoGP quite well. Him and Aldeguer have been neck and neck for who's been the fastest rookie. However, the Trackhouse bike doesn't seem to be all that brilliant, and 14th for Ogura seems about right. He'll have a solid mid-table season, fighting in and around the top 10 by the end. He'll have a good rookie season. However, I've got him finishing below his teammate Ralph Fernandez, who I've got in 13th spot. And this might be a controversial opinion. I think some people think that Ogura will go there and beat Ralph Fernandez straight away. I think Ralph Fernandez is quite an underrated rider. He's had some really good performances last year, like in Catalunya. I know he crashed out the lead of the sprint race, but even then he did well in the Sunday race. He's had some really good qualifying performances, and he's shown some good progression with every year. I think this year will be another good year of progression from Ralph Fernandez. And the reason I've got him finishing ahead of Ogura is Ogura struggles in qualifying. We saw that last year. For a world champion, his qualifying was pretty poor. And I think as a result, he'll struggle to score points in sprint races. Ralph Fernandez, we've seen, is very good at qualifying and good at sprint races. So I think that Ogura and Fernandez's Sunday performances will be very similar. However, I think Fernandez will have the upper hand in sprint races. So I've got Fernandez in 13th and Ogura in 14th. But overall, a good season from Fernandez once again. Another solid year of making progress. And he'll take the fight to Ogura, which I think is the most important thing. Because if he gets embarrassed by Ogura, that looks bad on him. 12th place, I've got Franco Morbidelli. Franco Morbidelli, in my opinion, is shit. He is not a good rider. The fact he scored one sprint podium across the whole year on what's probably the most dominant bike in MotoGP history is embarrassing, to be honest. I know he has some very good teammates, but to score one sprint podium is embarrassing from him, and I think he'll continue that form into this year. I don't care that he was good in testing. I don't care he was fastest on day 2 of Catalunya testing. I do not have faith in him to deliver at all. Morbidelli this year is staying on the GP24, meaning he should have an advantage over Aldeguer and Alex Marquez. And as a bare minimum, he should be beating one of them, but he really should be beating both of them. However, I don't think he'll do that. I think he'll have another flop season. This will end up being his last season in MotoGP, because I do not rate him at all. I think this will be his last lifeline, and I think he's going to blow it. Morbidelli, I think he's in for a very underwhelming season once again, and 12th place, bottom half of the championship. I mean, if that's not enough to get rid of him, I don't know what is. He's just not been the same since he got injured in 2021, and while it's sad to see, it doesn't mean we need to keep giving him contracts. Surely we can let some of the other young talent from Moto2 come in, rather than keeping with this old man who finishes in 10th every race despite being on the best bike. So yeah, Morbidelli, 12th place, bottom half, out at the end of the year. That's my prediction. 11th place now, I've got Enea Bastianini. Now, Bastianini has probably been the rider who's complained the most throughout testing in the media. However, despite that, he's a very good rider. No matter what struggles he'll have initially, I think he will overcome them. Bastianini is a very talented rider, arguably top 5 on the grid. And I think he will be able to push that bike over where it should be really, and secure a top half finish in the championship. I think while he may struggle initially, I think he will get better as the season goes on, and by the end I think he'll be challenging in and around Brad Binder really, because he's a very good rider. And there are also just certain tracks which Bastianini is really good at. Misano, Mugello, Malaysia, he's really good at, and at those tracks he'll get solid results which will put him up a bit higher in the championship. And I think he'll be comfortably ahead of Viñales as well. I think he'll be much faster than Viñales across the whole year really. So Bastianini, 11th place, overall solid year I think for him, considering the absolute shit show that's going on at KTM right now. 10th place, I've got Fermín Aldeguer, which of course means I've got him as Rookie of the Year. Fermín Aldeguer is someone who I've talked about a lot on this channel, and I said it in previous videos, I think he's going to have a patchy season, however he'll have some very good results. I've said it in a previous video, but I think a shock result for Aldeguer, which I'll submit as a prediction, he'll get a podium and a pole position on the same weekend, and I've pinpointed that weekend to be Phillip Island. He is great at that track. Fermín Aldeguer, He had a very inconsistent season last year, and I think that will continue into this year. However, the highs will promote him up to 10th in the championship. This kid has so much potential, he's got so much talent. I think there's no way that he doesn't have a successful season. And while there might be some races where he's languishing near the bottom, there'll be some races where he's fighting for podiums. I think overall he'll end up finishing 10th in the championship, he'll be Rookie of the Year. I think he will be helped by the fact that he'll be on probably the second fastest bike of the year. I think that will allow him to compete a lot more than someone like Ayagura. So yeah, overall a solid season for Aldeguer with some real highs which will regain some of the hype which he lost throughout last year. 10th place for Aldeguer. 9th place I've got Fabio Quartararo. I've got him so much higher up than all of his Yamaha teammates. However, I think he's just that much better than all his Yamaha teammates. I don't particularly rate Rins, Oliveira or Miller anymore. I think Quartararo is just so much better than them. Quartararo last year, he completely outperformed where that bike should have been. And Yamaha this season, they've shown some good signs throughout testing. However, they showed good signs last year. And they've said themselves they're not going to aim for top 5 finishes until the second half of the year. Which tells me that for the first half of the year, they'll still be around the bottom half. Quartararo, he'll still be the best Yamaha throughout the first half of the year, but he may be in and around the top 10. However, I think towards the end of the year, he'll be able to fight for podiums again. And overall, he'll end up finishing in 9th place, thanks to a bit of a late season surge. Quartararo is one of the best riders on the grid. I know that he'll outperform where the bike should be. However, I really don't see him finishing above 9th place really. Like after this we've got some serious contenders, so I think 9th place is the limit for Quartararo this year. However, he could easily prove me wrong with this. 8th place now, I've gone with Brad Binder. Binder, he finished 5th in the championship last year, best of the rest after the top 4. And he had a good consistent year. He didn't have any standout results really after the first round. However, he brought the bike home on most occasions and I think this season will be more of the same. However, I do think that KTM will take a bit of a step backwards this year, especially considering their financial problems. I think their development might let Binder down a bit. So I can't see him finishing much higher than 8th place really. I don't think he'll beat Acosta again. I think the only reason he beat Pedro Acosta last year was because Acosta was a rookie. I think he'll still comfortably be ahead of Bastianini. I think he'll be a lot more consistent than Bastianini across the whole year. But yeah, 8th place for Brad Binder on the KTM, it seems about right to me. 7th place now, I've gone with Alex Marquez. Alex Marquez has done very well in testing. He's been one of the fastest riders, if not the fastest on some days, and everybody's been losing their collective minds over him. I've seen people predicting him for top 3, top 5 in the championship. No. We are overhyping him a bit, and we're also overestimating that bike. We will see that the GP24 will slowly get worse as the season goes on as other teams develop their bikes. And also, I think we are just overhyping Alex Marquez a bit. Malaysia is one of Alex Marquez's favourite tracks. Of course he's going to do well in testing there. So, I really don't think we'll see him in a top 3 position. I don't think we'll see him fight for the championship at all. But I think he will have a good season, and I think he'll have his best season to date. I'll also submit a bold prediction in that I see Alex Marquez winning his first Grand Prix this year. Not just a sprint race, a full-on race on Sunday. I see him achieving that. And he'll have a good year, and he'll have his best year, and he'll be comfortably the best of the GP24s. However, he's not going to be in any title fight. He's not going to be anywhere close to top 3 in the championship. We've seen from Marquez in the past that on some races he can fight for podiums, and the others he can be fighting for 12th place. He also crashes a fair bit, so I don't see him finishing any higher than 7th. That is the final position I've got him in. 6th place, I've got Marco Bezzecchi. I originally thought Bezzecchi wouldn't have that great of a year, however he has shown a lot of promise in testing. With Jorge Martin gone from testing for Aprilia, Bezzecchi has stepped up and he's shown that that bike has some serious pace. I think he has shown that Aprilia will probably be the second fastest manufacturer across the whole year, and Bezzecchi seems to have refound some of his form from 2023. Last year was a bit of a disaster for him really, 12th in the championship, being beaten by his new teammate Gian Antonio. One podium all year, it was a disaster for him. However, he switched settings and I think he's going to have a good year. He'll get some more podiums, he'll just be in and around the front more. He won't have as many races where he's fighting for 9th place. And overall, very solid year. I think he won't be able to match Martin though, because Jorge Martin, he's the world champion. He won't be up to that standard. However, Bezzecchi, he'll have a good, impressive year. He'll find some consistency, which was one thing he lacked all of last year. 6th place in the championship seems about right for Bezzecchi. 5th place, I've gone with Fabio Di Giannantonio. This was one that I changed last minute really. I did originally have him in 4th. However, the thing that made me put him down to 5th is the fact that he's missed all of testing through injury. Digi, he's going to be on the GP25 next year, which in theory should be the fastest bike by far. However, Digi is just not an elite rider like some of the others fighting at the front. He's not on the level of people like Jorge Martin, Bagnaia, Brad Binder even. He's just not at that level in my opinion. Which means I can't see him finishing higher than 5th, especially considering he's missed all of testing through injury. It'll take a little while to adjust to that bike. 5th place for Di Giannantonio. I think he will get 1 or 2 race victories maybe, and he'll fight for podiums on multiple occasions. However, 5th place in the championship, I don't see him being top 3. 4th place, I've gone with Pedro Acosta. Despite the shit show that's going on at KTM right now, Acosta has continued to shine throughout testing. He's been by far the fastest KTM. He looks like the only one who could even get on the podium on that bike, and I think he'll continue to do that. Last year was an astonishing rookie year from him, and I think he'll be more of the same really. Last year he crashed a lot, which makes sense being a rookie. This year I don't think he'll crash as much because I think he will have learnt from that. However, I do still see him crashing a fair bit because the bike, like last year, will continue to hold him back. However, despite that, I think Acosta will win multiple races this year, and it's such a shame that KTM aren't going to be able to deliver a championship winning bike, because if he had a bike that was able to fight for that championship, I think he could be a serious contender. I rate this kid so highly. However, he'll crash a few more times, the bike will hold him back, so I don't see him getting top 3 this year. However, 4th place for Pedro Acosta in his 2nd season, and like I said, I think he'll win at least 2 Grand Prix. It'll be a super successful season, and hopefully KTM are able to give him a championship contending bike in the future. 3rd place, I've gone with Jorge Martin. I originally had Jorge Martin a bit lower in this list before testing. However, Aprilia seemed to have delivered in testing. Bezzecchi has shown some very good pace at times, which leads me to believe that Aprilia will be competitive throughout the year. That being said, we do know that Martin has missed all of testing through injury. He'll have that adjustment period throughout the start of the year, which means he'll take a bit of a time to get to his full potential. However, I think once he gets back to his best, he'll be fighting at the front. There'll be some races where he's fighting for victories. I think he'll get multiple sprint race victories across the year. However, I do think that the bike just won't be on the level of that factory Ducati, so I can't see him being in a title challenge for most of the year really. I think with about 5 or 6 rounds left, Martin will have dropped out of it. He'll be a consistent contender at the front of Grand Prix, however, he just won't be able to be consistently fighting for victories like the top 2. So 3rd place for Jorge Martin, and I think honestly he'll take that as a first season on the Aprilia. And that of course leaves the top 2, Bagnaia and Marquez. Who is going to win the World Championship? I don't really see anybody other than these two being in a championship battle at all really. Ducati just seem to be a step ahead of everybody else, and the new factory bike, even though they are using some components from last year, it's still going to be an upgrade and it's still going to be much faster. And these are arguably the 2 best riders on the grid. I don't see anyone else being in the title fight other than Bagnaia and Marquez. But with that, who do I think is going to win the World Championship? Well, in 2nd place I've got for Pecco Bagnaia, meaning Marc Marquez I've got as my world champion. We'll start with Bagnaia though. Bagnaia, of course, lost the World Championship to Martin last year, and I think to rule him out of a championship battle would be stupid. Bagnaia is going to be in the championship battle. There's too many tracks which he's really good at for him to not be in the championship battle. However, I think Marquez is just that step clear really. Marquez is just so elite as a rider, and I don't see Bagnaia being able to overcome him across the whole year. I think one main thing is Marquez is a lot stronger mentally than Pecco Bagnaia. Bagnaia throughout a lot of last year was complaining a lot, saying things weren't his fault, and I know that he's gone back on that once he lost the World Championship, but I do still think that Marquez is going to show more mental strength across the whole year, which means that Bagnaia is going to get left behind, I think. I really don't see this championship battle going down to the wire. I think Marquez will have it sewn up by the second last round. I think it'll be a fairly close battle across the year, but ultimately I think Marquez is just too strong and I think he'll have it sewn up with a round to go. As well as this, Marquez no longer has the factor of not being on the fastest bike. Last year Marquez crashed so much because he wasn't on the fastest bike and he was pushing super hard to, make up for that. This year he's going to be on the fastest bike, he doesn't need to push over the limit, he's going to finish more races. I think he'll settle for second places a lot more, he won't fight for as many race victories because he knows there'll be more of a championship picture this year. And also Marc Marquez just seemed to be completely superior in testing. He showed immense pace throughout Thailand, it was almost scary to be honest. Marquez, he has potential to dominate quite a lot of races this year. I don't think the championship will be a complete whitewash, I think there will be a good battle for most of the year. However, Marc Marquez, like I said, he'll have it sewn up with a round to go. I don't see anything other than that really. And as much as I hate to completely rule out Bagnaia this early, I just don't see him winning the championship. I think there's too many things in Marquez's favour for it to not go to Marc Marquez this year. So those are my 2025 Rider Championship predictions. Quickly let's go over the manufacturers and the teams championships. So for the constructors I've got Ducati first, then Aprilia, KTM, Yamaha and Honda. I don't see in any world how it could be anything different unless KTM completely fall off a cliff halfway through. And for the teams championship I've got factory Ducati in first, then Aprilia, KTM, then VR46, Gresini, Yamaha, Gas, Trackhouse, Pramac Yamaha, Honda and LCR Honda in last. I did them based purely off my rider lineup predictions, so these could be very wrong by the end of the year if I've got my rider predictions wrong. So anyways, those are my official 2025 MotoGP Championship predictions, and I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments, have I gotten this completely wrong, and who do you think is going to win the championship in 2025? Feel free to leave your predictions down in the comments below, and if you went to enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel while you're there. I will be doing a Moto 2 and Moto 3 version of this at some point next week, so look forward to that, subscribe if you want to see that. However, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and I'll see you guys very soon. Bye bye.